Privatization and the measures in favor of privatization. Which measures were taken for privatization? So what is privatization? पहले आप लिख लीजिए privatization क्या है? Privatization means to remove the strict control. To remove the strict control of government or private sector. Or private sector and leave it free. And leave it free for decision making. Decision making. So, meaning of privatization is very simple. It means to remove the strict control of government over private sector and leave it free for decision making. Sometimes it also means to control the private sector or to decrease the share of private sector in this public sector. So privatization is the general process of involving, private sector in the ownership and operation of state-owned enterprises. It is the process, ये वो अमल है जिसके तहत is the process of involving private sector. It is the process of involving private sector in the ownership and operation meaning running of state enterprises. State enterprises means those industries or those corporations or those producing units which are under government sector. So it means two things. One is to remove the control over private sector and leave it free for decision making at their own at market level. It also means involving private sector in the ownership and management of state enterprise. That means to give the state enterprises, public enterprises, government enterprises in the hands of the private sector. So it implies gradual decrease of government ownership and management in the public sector enterprises. Thus it is gradual decrease of government ownership or management of public sector enterprises, So in a country, we have two types of producing units. One owned by the private sector and the others owned by the government sector. So these are two types of producing units working side by side in the economy. So some industries are owned by the government sector and some are owned by the private sector. Privatization means to decrease the share of government sector in the ownership and management and give it in the hands of the private sector. It is done as a consequence that public sector enterprises do not show efficiency, it increases the efficiency of enterprises or producing units. So privatization may happen in two ways. It may happen in two ways. Privatization may happen in two ways. Number one, sale of government enterprises to private enterprises. First, sale of government enterprises. Sale of those industries, those corporations which are in the hands of the government to the private sector. Government अपना शेयर बेच देते हैं, अपने इंडस्ट्रीज बेच देते हैं प्राइवेट लोगों को. Yes, that is also privatization. To the sale of government enterprises to private sector. Yes, जो गवर्नमेंट के अंडर इंडस्ट्रीज हैं उनको प्राइवेट सेक्टर में दे दीजिए. Number second, withdrawal of government ownership and management from mixed enterprises. The enterprise is jointly owned and managed by the government and private sector. Number second, withdrawal. कुछ इंडस्ट्रीज ऐसी हैं, कुछ कॉर्पोरेशंस ऐसे हैं, कुछ प्रोड्यूसिंग यूनिट्स ऐसे हैं जिनमें दोनों का शेयर है. फॉर एग्जांपल, देयर इज ए फर्म व्हिच इज ओन्ड बाय गवर्नमेंट as well as private sector. For example, 40% share of private sector and 50% share of government sector. 50 इनका 50 इनका या 40 इनका 60 इनका.
जी सर.
तो ऐसे में गवर्नमेंट अपना शेयर विड्रॉ करता है and sells it to the private sector. So second वे है प्राइवेटाइजेशन के लिए विड्रॉवल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट ऑनरशिप. गवर्नमेंट ऑनरशिप एंड मैनेजमेंट फ्रॉम मिक्सड एंटरप्राइजेस. What are mixed enterprises? Mixed enterprises are those enterprises which are jointly managed and controlled by government and private entrepreneurs. जिसमें दोनों का शेयर है, दोनों jointly चलाते हैं. So this is the meaning of privatization. So both these ways or both these processes means disinvestment. Sale of government enterprise to private sector, it is also disinvestment. Withdrawal of government ownership and management from mixed enterprise, it is also disinvestment. So privatization can be achieved by disinvestment. So both these ways shows disinvestment of the government in the enterprises. So it disinvests, it sells its share to the private sector. Now the question is, छोटा सा question आप लिख लीजिए, what is disinvestment? What is disinvestment? ये कभी कभी पूछा जाता है, शॉर्ट आंसर टाइप. It is a part of privatization. It is the way to forward towards privatization. Way forward towards privatization. It is a variant of privatization. It is a component of privatization. Answer लिख लीजिए. It is a variant of. It is a variant or we can say part of privatization. Variant of privatization, component of privatization. It is a situation when government sells off a part of its share capital to the private investors. So what is it? It means when government sells off its share to the private sector. Private sector. जब गवर्नमेंट अपना शेयर सेल करता है टू द प्राइवेट सेक्टर. Arguments in favor of disinvestment is same as in favor of privatization. So disinvestment and these objective is same. The objective for disinvestment and privatization, they are same. It is taken as a remedial measure to improve production and managerial efficiency as well as to facilitate modernization. So this is the point. It is taken. Why it is taken? It is taken to improve production and management, production and management, production and management, and to facilitate modernization, and to facilitate modernization. So modernization is very important for industrial sector. Whenever new things comes into the market, the industry must cope up with the modern technologies. For example, I will take up the example of communication industries. In communication sector, there are so many players or entrepreneurs working. For example, in communication sector, we have government sector working in the form of BSNL. We have Airtel. In the private sector, we have Jio. We have, yes, Idea, etc. When new technologies comes in the market, the private entrepreneurs quickly adopt that technology. They modernize their plants. But government sector is inefficient in adopting the modernization and technology. For example, BSNL is still working on old technology. Compared to that, Airtel, Jio, they have modern technologies. So the main aim of the disinvestment to sell the share of the government sector to the private sector. So privatization is to improve the production, increase the production capacity, increase the production in the economy, which means growth, increase the management and efficiency, and to facilitate that, to introduce the modern techniques in this.